Good morning, Bill. How are you, sir?
Excellent. How about yourself?
If I was any better, I'd be you, brother. Uh, Bill, this is our first time. My first time getting to sit down with you, man. I'm really looking forward to today's show.
Likewise.
If for those that don't know, my name is Rich Brown. I'm a retired Marine Corps officer, former police officer, corrections officer, special operations response team guy, and now I'm America's favorite cymbal banging monkey. Talking to you this morning here from beautiful Cumberland Plateau in East Tennessee, and I have the honor and privilege of being joined by Mr. Bill Rapier. If I'm pronouncing your last name correctly.
You are. That's correct.
Well, let's go ahead and do Bill's bio and get that out of the way. Then we'll get into the show. Bill Rapier is the owner and lead instructor of American Tactical Shooting Instruction, LLC, also known as Amtac Shooting. He is the lead instructor of over 2,200 Amtac shooting courses and has trained over 2,500 students since 2020. Bill is retired after 20 years in the Navy, where his duty assignments included several years with SEAL Team 3 and over 14 years at Naval Special Warfare Development Group. Positions held include assaulter, breacher, sniper, team leader, troop chief, and military working dog department senior enlisted advisor. He has always been an avid shooter and is heavily involved in combatives. There we go.
All right.
It's always weird. I don't know how you feel about it, Bill, but hearing your bio, like your whole life encapsulated in a few sentences, is that weird for you?
It is always weird, but it's one of those. I've learned that you have to. There has to be there has to be some name recognition that goes along with this. I always used to say, in a perfect world, I'd show up at a class and people would be like, "Who are you?" And I'd say, "I'm Bill. I'm here to teach." But you can't feed the family unless people know who you are and are interested in coming and training with you. So it's one of the areas that I have grown in and am now much more comfortable with kind of talking about, some of the stuff that's appropriate to talk about my past life.
Yeah. And that's a really cool distinction. How many years did you do in the Navy?
20 years in a month.
Yeah, I did 23, although really 20 years in a month, but I had 3 years where I was out doing law enforcement and then I came back in, but I was in the reserves the whole time. So 23 years of service. And it is a past life. I mean, a lot of people can't let go of it. And I think that's one of the problems with our community. It's like you keep running around hiding behind your resume. It's like, well, that's cool that you did those cool things in the 90s, bro, but what are you doing right now? What can you lift? What can you bench? How fast can you run? Let's get you on the mats. What can you do? Let's go to the range. Let's put a timer on it. Where are you at? And I think a lot of guys are, just from what I see in my 13 years being retired, a lot of people tend to default back to their glory days. Do you see that at all?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, that's one of the things I say to students quite frequently is that I realize that some guys might have signed up for a class because of what I did back in my time active duty, and if that's the case, great. I'm like, I did earn that. It was like it was a good run. However, I don't want guys to come back to a second course because of something that I did. Now I retired 11 years ago now. I want guys to come back because they're getting the highest quality training that they can get. And I'm huge on. I mean, there's so much stuff, even just that. Unless you're teaching specific, CQB or small unit tactics stuff, like so much of the pistol combative stuff is not. It's just not stuff that military guys are specializing in, because that's not the job, to be able to pull out a pistol concealed, while smashing someone else and, protecting your tools and all those things. Like, that's not the job of military guys. And so, I mean, that gets into the whole, it's honestly, most of my repeat students, well, none of my repeat students ever show up with battle belts unless they're cops, or I'm teaching a night vision class. And it's just because the reality is, like, I want guys to, when they show up to train, that they're probably going to be doing more reps than they do over, or than they would do over the course of multiple months, right? Because we're doing 2 or 3 days of high intensity training. And so why would you show up with a battle belt on when that's not what that's not how you roll, right? And I mean, unless when you get up in the morning to go buy groceries, you put your battle belt on, that's what the cops do. So I encourage those guys, hey, come and train with that, unless you already have enough reps with your exposed holster and you want to get the concealed reps. But for your normal guys that are serious about protecting themselves and their family, which is overwhelmingly the market that I have, my students are guys, normal dudes that are serious about protecting themselves and their family. And so I tell them, hey, bring the gun that you shoot the best with, right? Again, if 1 hour from now you have to make a partial headshot on a bad guy, and it's a partial headshot because your insert wife, child, weakest member of your household is what's obscuring that shot right there. Like, what's the pistol that you want? Right. And then carry that pistol and, and dress in order to conceal it. Right. Carry the tools that you have the most capability with.
Man, I'll tell you, I'm really looking forward to today's show.
All right.
You're speaking the King's English here, my friend. I love it.
All right.
Will Parker is on out there in Montana. He is coin number 800. And if you're wondering what a coin number is, check out the links in today's show. Also, if you're interested in what Bill and those guys are up to over at Amtac, I will make sure that I have links and everything once the podcast is live, so you can check out what him and his folks are doing over there up in northern Idaho. Will Rhodes is on, says, good morning, Rich and Bill, coin number 2269. We have Johnny King out there in Kentucky. Brian Schuler's on from North Texas. We've got another Kentuckian, Edmund Scarborough. James up there in Massachusetts. Will Parker said, just in the context of concealed carry, it is an incredible broad topic of necessary. Yeah. And we have Tony on from Georgia. Bruce, hey, thanks to the 17 folks watching live and everybody listening to the replay. I know we have kind of some things to talk about, but I cannot and I will not go by what you just said. Man, this is something that really irks me. I have a training group that I do every Thursday morning, a private handgun group, and we meet every Thursday on the range for a 2-hour session, have lunch. It's a really wonderful thing. And one of the guys sent me a video last night. He's like, hey, Rich, what do you think about this? And the guy's got, helmets and plates and all this crap, and he's got a, $15,000 rifle. And so, and I knew who the guy was. He's a civilian, never been in the military. I'm like, I bristle a little bit at the LARPing aspect of it. I've had a problem with that. I'm like, I've had friends die wearing that kit. It's not just something for you to run around and play military, especially if you're a grown ass man. So I tend to default to the aspect of, what does your day-to-day life look like? Okay, you're a concealed carrying American. You're an armed American. I love you. You're part of my tribe. Now let's train in that gear. And when you get that perfect, now maybe we can start elevating it to something else. But what I find is their skills are not there on the day-to-day. And they want to go to the high-speed ninja stuff. And it's like, brother, you can't hit a B8 target from 25 yards. Why? I'm not going to do ninja rolls with you, man. And you're not ready to do Imanari rolls on the range yet. You know what I mean?
Man, I could not agree with you more. It's actually, so I look at it as a continuum, right? So you should, when we go just mindset wise, right? When on the readiness side, or the preparedness side of the readiness formula, right? You should always start with most likely enemy course of action and work your way towards most dangerous enemy course of action. So where I normally start with guys, hey, what's more likely that you run out of fuel driving home from the range today, or that Amazon stops working? And I always tell guys, Amazon no longer working. That's the code for the zombie apocalypse has begun, right? So probably more likely that you run out of fuel. Now, so start your readiness with, when your gas gauge gets to half full, at the next safe gas station, pull over and get fuel. Next, what's more likely? Random violence while getting fuel, or, complete societal breakdown, right? Probably random violence. So start with awareness, right? Head on a swivel. Who is this person? What are they doing here? What is this object? Why is it here? Carry tools, right? Carry a pistol and a blade, and know how to use them. Know how to take a punch, know how to throw a punch. Be good at pulling your pistol out fast, right? Be good at pulling your pistol out while fighting, right? While swimming underhooks, while stopping the other guy from pulling his pistol out, while smashing the other guy in the face, right? We need to understand all these things. Once you and be fit, right? That's another huge thing, right? Guys are out of shape, right? I mean, you're most likely, one of my instructors just said this the other day, and I'm totally going to steal it. He said, all right, so you're willing to lay down your life for your family. Okay. Well, are you willing to lay down your fork at the buffet line for them as well, so that you can stick around for an extra 15 years and help raise your family?
Yeah.
Right. Like that's such a, I immediately, when he said that, I'm like, I'm totally stealing that right there. That's a great line, right? Be in shape, right? Because again, it's on the likelihood spectrum, right? You're way more likely to die of a heart attack than you are of violence. Amen. Right. So like if we're talking about being able to protect ourselves and our families, that starts with us, and with us being healthy and in shape. Your quality of life will be better if you are in good shape, right? I mean, if you weigh 500 pounds, you're not going to go outside and go for a walk with your wife, right? You're not going to go throw a baseball with your child, right? So we need to be fit. We need to be able to do pistol combatives. But then once we can do that, I do believe that we should, right? We should continue the training, right? So the next thing that I would encourage you guys is, hey, a carbine, right? Because now a carbine allows me to negatively vote against a large group of people that want to come burn me out of my house, right? It's not a hard thing to, with a modern rifle, to say no. Like we're not, if I feel, if I think that you are going to kill me and my family, like we're going to start with you, right? And obviously we don't want to do this. We want to be able to project the power, which is another reason why I like vis lasers on pistols, right? Not as any kind of a primary thing, but as if it is a crowd, you with the laser in the eyeball, I'm going to start with you. So why don't we just go? Why don't you go ahead and just turn around and leave right now, right? Obviously, only if you have the willingness, like in your mind, you're like, yes, all the threshold, all the criteria have been met. If you take one more step, I'm gonna blow your head up. Once we can do that, then yes, learn how to use a carbine, right? Then yes, sure. Like there is potential there that there could be serious problems, right? I am all for prepared citizens, modern Minutemen, like all of that. I am for that, but don't do it if you can't run down the block and pull your pistol out. Right. And make a credit card shot at 7 yards. If you can't do that, right? If you can't fight and pull your pistol out and have a baseline level of accuracy, you have zero business throwing on nods and running around in the woods.
Amen. Oh, I love it, Bill. I love it. Doug is on, and Doug is a lieutenant with a police department up in Ohio. I won't say where. And Doug and I, he was rolling through Tennessee the other day. I met him and his bride for a cup of coffee. Nice. As they were rolling through town. He said, actually, Rich and I had a similar conversation just last week about fitness and nutrition as a protector, especially as we age. Yeah, man, I'm almost 60, and I'll tell you what, I'm the strongest I've ever been. Now I will be freely to admit, I've had to do some TRT. And if you're a guy in a similar age group and you know that some things aren't where they should be, get it checked. And if you need it, get it taken care of. I mean, it would be no different than any other kind of taking care of your body and your mind and what have you. Let's see here. We got some other comments coming in. Jeff is on. Good morning, my brother. So Doug is on. Donald Green is on from the People's Republic of Virginia. God bless y'all.
Virginia. Spent some time there.
Yeah. Y'all, it's changed since you were there. Probably it's gotten worse. Rick Montana is on from Montana. Johnny King says there's plenty of Meal Team 6 dudes out there that can't run the 100-yard dash. And of course, that's not this community. Doug was a competing strongman for a long time. Tony says, maybe off topic, but thoughts on John Shrek McPhee's comments: shooting more than 20 rounds at a range is a waste of time, and gunfights 3 yards, 3 shots. Yeah, I don't know about that. I mean, I don't know. Do you want to talk about that?
I just saw some of those comments just recently. I
didn't see it. I'll train with John.
In my opinion, the more likely, to me, the most important thing, right after awareness and 100% safety with your tools, is clean draw stroke from concealment.
Yep.
Right. Because your most likely engagement is going to be up close. So you should be able to pull your pistol out fast and then be able to shoot accurately. I think the pulling your pistol out fast and being able to make shots up close is more important, right? I wouldn't start a guy shooting B8s at 25 yards, right? I would start, and I do start guys with clean draw stroke from concealment, right? Then after that, the next two things, and I put them on the same level, would be other strong hand only deployment and targeting of a blade, right? That's your absolute 100% best weapons retention tool, right? Guys going for your pistol, you draw a blade with your other strong hand and put it in his throat, right? Super, super easy, very simple to teach people how to do that. Right. But so few people do. And then on the same level as that would be combative weapons retention shooting.
Yep.
So being able to, right. And this is the whole, like, kind of the part of the integrated combatives that so many guys get wrong, right? Guys want to train, they want to go to the range and train with their pistol. And then they go to the mat room and train jets. And then they do some Thai boxing, right? And do some blade work. And where the magic is in the transitions. Going from, yep, I'm punching you in the face, and now there's a pistol in my hand. Or, man, my right hand is busy, right? Swimming underhooks, arm dragging you. Therefore, my left hand is free. Therefore, a blade's coming out.
Yep.
Right. And, and any of the transitions in between that, right? That would be the most important thing. But after you've done that, absolutely, you should be shooting, right? If this is part of your identity, like, yeah, I carry tools and I train, you should be able to make, you should be able to shoot B8s at 25 yards. You should practice shooting with your pistol at 100 yards because guess what? Our equipment now can do that, right? It's not hard with it. I mean, you could do it with iron sights back in the day as well, but it's a lot easier now with shooting a dot gun, right? I carry PDP, full-size PDP, right? So I got 18 in the gun, and I carry a full-size reload. And fully recognizing the most likely is not needing to do a reload. I actually put like the ability to do combat reloads super, super low as far as like a core skill, right? Yes, you should know how to do it, but in my experience, that is not something that's probably going to save your life. I carry a spare magazine because if I happen to be at the mall or movie theater or restaurant and it's an actual coordinated Islamic attack, I know I can do more with 36 rounds than I can with just 18 or with just 8 or with just 5 in a snubby. Right. So, yeah.
But let me go on to some of the things you said there, Bill. And thank you to the 23 folks that are on live with us this morning. I'm talking to Bill Rapier, of course. If you're just joining us, retired Navy guy, spent some time in the teams and finished out in DevGru. And during your time with DevGru, I think you were more than a decade at that command, right?
Yeah, 14 years.
Okay, 14 years. How many pistol shots did you see taken in combat purposefully?
I never shot anyone with a pistol. A few of my friends did. But it was
after a transition from an M4 dead rifle and then had to go to the pistol.
Don't know of anyone that did that. Okay, I transitioned like climbing up on roofs and stuff like that. I've transitioned, but it's just try climbing up a ladder with one hand on an AR, right? Yeah. So no, I've never transitioned because I had a stoppage. I don't know anyone that had transitioned because of a stoppage.
Yeah. And herein is the thing with like a lot of the GWAT ninjas that are coming out and that are teaching handgun stuff now. It's like, you didn't get a lot of handgun kills, and I was not an assaulter in the GWAT. Let's be clear. I've got a lot of friends who were, and I was like, it just didn't happen. They didn't see it. I'm not saying it never ever happened, but I don't think the pistol skills are where they think they are. And I've trained with a lot of these guys, and I can say that from just what I've seen. So I think there's a lot of value in competition, and maybe we can get to that at some point today. And of course, that's I guess I say all that to say there's another skill set, and you're talking about integrative combatives, and that's what we just worked on during our Warrior Week. We talked a lot about that, and a lot of it has to do with and you're, I was Department of the Navy too. And when you talk about projecting power at that distance, there's something called the tyranny of distance, right? Especially if you're projecting on shore as a Marine Expeditionary Unit. You got distance is a problem, logistics is a problem. How are you going to fuel the Amtrex? How are you going to get the beans, bullets, and band-aids out there? Why am I saying that? Because I look at tyranny of distance now in terms of the combatives piece. And this is something that me and Seeklander worked on when we were cops in the 90s, man. Like, we knew that we're not Marine infantrymen anymore. So now we're police officers. It's a different ROE. It's a different skill set. We're going to need to tangle. We got to rest. I can't just leave. It's not like I'm a civilian now and I can just walk away from this asshat. He's got to go to jail. I'm going to have to put my hands on him, and I have a gun on me. So there's a gun involved in this entanglement. And every time Bill has said it twice, and I love it, if he's saying swimming underhooks. And if you don't know what he means by swimming an underhook, you need to find a combatives class quick, because you're behind the power curve. Because if not, somebody's going to swim an underhook on you in an entanglement, and it's going to be lights out.
Yeah. Wrestling is a baseline, and then jiu-jitsu. Right? These are things that you have to be able to do. Again, like when we just talk on the combative side of things, like, again, the most bang for your buck is pistol work, right? I mean, I think about this. You have, 70-year-old grandma. Very, as long as I can get her to be able to safely rack the pistol and point it at the door, after 5 minutes of me doing dry fire training with her, I don't want to be the guy coming through the door. Right. I mean, she knows I'm coming, right. She has the willingness, the awareness to know this is going on. And she knows, hey, all I got to do is rack the pistol, point at the door, and start hammering. Right. So that's your biggest bang for your buck. Your next one is going to be your blade use, right? Within 20 minutes to 2 hours of blade use. Right. I don't want to, if you don't know that the other person has one of those tools, man, they're going to kill you. For sure. And for a lot of people, even if you do know that they have those tools on you, right? If they're using speed, surprise, and violence of action, right? They're hiding, right? They're concealing their tools. No, please, no. Right. And then the tools come out. They will kill you. After that, it would be striking. Right. Because again, striking is, it's simpler. And striking is easier, right? Buys us time to access tools. Once we can do those three things, then I tell guys, hey, go and, right, once they have a foundation in integrated combatives, go and get your blue belt or equivalent in a real martial art. Like if you're a longtime wrestler, you're a Sambo guy. Yes. If you're an Aikido guy, sorry guys, no, like doesn't count, right? People actually have to be actively trying to not let you do these things to them. And for most guys, if you're a real blue belt in jiu-jitsu, like, you are going to crush 90+% of normal human beings in a, quote unquote fair fight, in a no tools fight. You're going to crush 90% of people. And really, from a strict combatives perspective, that's good enough, right? And that's another, we should talk about that, like good enough, what's good enough, periodicity, like that's another, it's kind of something that I've been on, chatting about a little bit lately, but
let's talk about that. But before we get into it, because I love this, I want to dig in there. We got Cecil Birch, my good friend from Immediate Action Combatives, one of the OGs of integrated grappling. Good to have you on this morning. Cecil, of course, is part of the ShivWorks collective and a good friend, and had him on the show multiple times. We got Cruz up there, Super Fine, Rhode Island. Tony is also on from Rhode Island. So let's talk about that real quick, because I love the point about good enough, and that is what a handgun is. A handgun is good enough. If you and I truly knew today when we go to Walmart, we're going to get ambushed, but we have to go to Walmart. I'm not taking I'll take a handgun as a secondary, but I'm toting an M4. 100%. If I knew the fight is today. But why do we carry handguns? We carry handguns because they're concealable, they're portable, and they're good enough. And there also has to be a standard of good enough when it comes to a little bit of edge weapons defense. And, so for several years, I went to Marshall Blade Camp up in Colorado and spent 4 days doing edge weapons work, and year after year do that. And I had a little training group, and I'm like, man, I want to find somebody to train with in Tennessee. Who else is doing as a Marshall Blade alumnus in Tennessee? He's like, nobody. I'm like, I got 7 million people, and yet everybody I see in Tennessee is carrying a blade, and yet none of them are training with it. And if that's your idea, I'm going to cut somebody off, Rich. Okay, how? What does that look like? Show me. And they don't have a plan. So let's talk about what is good enough, Bill. What are your thoughts?
So when I say good enough, first off, we need to couch this with it's painful for me to say that because I'm maybe slightly competitive and right. I want to run faster than everyone. I want to out grapple everyone. I want to outshoot everyone. Right. I like winning. I like being competitive. I think it's a good thing. But when we're taking this holistically, when we're taking this from the perspective of, hey, I want to protect myself and my family, then as you look at it, if you're like, yeah, I can, I'm consistently under 1.5 seconds from concealment, one-handed draws, right? I'm shooting good splits. But man, like that walk from the car over to the range, it was 75 yards. And, I had to carry a backpack that was like 25 pounds and I was kind of winded. Okay. Honestly, maybe you need to go to the range a little bit less and maybe you need to get in the gym a little bit more. Right. Or maybe, your fitness is tracking, your shooting is hard. But when I ask the question, how many guys, at the beginning of a class, how many guys have a tourniquet on your person right now? You go, what's tourniquet? Okay. Let's, we need to rectify this. Maybe the instead of going to a shooting class next time, sign up for a medical class and learn how to do, some basic TCCC stuff because you're actually way more likely to use your medical skills than you are your shooter skills.
100%.
Can
I talk about that real quick too?
Yeah, go for it.
When I retired, I got a job with American Red Cross disaster stuff. So I ended up being in charge of the state of Tennessee with regard to disaster relief and government ops. So, and I consistently say, you're more likely for your freaking house to burn down than you are to be in a gunfight, statistically, right? And then those same people who go to high round count classes don't even know if they have smoke alarms or if they work, and they don't have a plan to get their kids off the second deck. And then recently, within this past 2025, we've got a pretty nice little compound here in East Tennessee, and there's 4 houses here. My family, we all live on this farm. My dad's house caught on fire, and then 2 weeks ago, my son's house caught on fire. You know what I'm saying? So. And it didn't burn to the ground. We were able to save them because we had a plan and we had smoke alarms that worked and everything functions as it was supposed to. But you have to prepare for that. And I used to say, the best gadget you can get for your gun is a gym membership for you. The tool's only as good as you and your will to employ it. So it's so refreshing to hear you kind of say, let's temper some of these things because it's easy for we were training a federal law enforcement group and one of them was a former team guy and he was about my age and he's laid back like I am, just he's chilling and we're like, all right, man, this time we're going to race. And we backed him up to the 50-yard line and everybody kind of walks back there and he jogs back there. And then we're like, all right, this is going to be it. And he tightens up the strap on his M4 and it was just something different suddenly about once the competition come on, the former team guy, even though he was the oldest on the range, he smoked everybody there. And I say that because, and that will to win, there's a time when it matters and there's a time when it doesn't. So train for the time that matters. Is that, if that makes sense?
For sure. And I want to make sure that I dovetail in here, right? So when I say good enough, that's when you're at the end of your range day, at the end of your training day, and you're looking at, okay, what are all the categories that I need to be able to do in order to protect myself and my family, right? When you're looking at all of those categories, you might go, okay, my fitness is good enough right now. Like for what I'm trying to do, my fitness is good enough. I'm just going to maintain, or my shooting is good enough, right? However, in the moment, while you're working out, while you're drawing, what's fast enough on your draw stroke? There is no such thing. right? Like in the moment, I'm training to shoot as fast, to pull the pistol out, get an accurate shot as fast as I am physically able to do. So in the moment, don't accept good enough. There is no such thing. But when we look at it as a whole, you have to be able to go, okay, because our time is limited, right? Time and resources are limited. Therefore, you need to be smart with how you do it. Just like as we get older with fitness, we need to get smarter. I loved you talked about the logistics, right? One of my favorite sayings, and I attributed it to Napoleon, is that the amateur discusses tactics and the professional discusses logistics.
Yeah.
Right. Think about the most high speed commandos on the planet, right? Drop them off in my neck of the woods right now with desert equipment and come back a week later and see how fighting capable they are, right? Like without jackets and food, right? You're sorry, right? So logistics matter, right? And time is part of our logistics equation, right? The amount of money that we have in order to train, right? For rounds, for going to classes, for just driving to the range, right? All these things, it's part of logistics. And so we need to be smart in how we apply, the tools that God has given us, right?
Yeah, I love that. I love that. So let's back up. Let's talk about what got you in the Navy. And I know we're 30 minutes into this. We're going back to the beginning, but that's the kind of amazing show that's been so far. So thank you, Bill, for putting up with my questions. Let's start at the beginning, man. What led you to the Navy, and were you heading toward NSW as soon as you joined the Navy, or did that happen later on? Tell us about that.
So I had wanted to be in the military since as long as I can remember. The question was, do I want to fly a jet or be a commando? Those were really the questions. And actually a little bit before that was, well, I just wanted to go to United States Military Academy. And that was kind of some leading from my father, because he saw me going, yeah, I want to join the military. My dad was like, well, this is what you should do. So that was my goal for a long time. And then come junior year of high school, I was wrestling and kind of rebelling and kind of walking away from my faith a little bit, not overtly, but well, yes, overtly, just not everyone knew about it. And so I'd always wanted to do that, but my grades started tanking, and I was like, I do not want to do another 4 years of college. Definitely wouldn't have gotten in at that point anyways. And so then I started looking at what is the hardest commando organization that I can join with the highest likelihood of seeing action. So I started reading, stuff about Army guys, stuff about the Marine Corps. I really didn't know anything about Air Force and CCT and that kind of stuff. And then obviously, right, SEALs, write some books. So
yeah,
read some old, Point Man and, Men with Green Faces, some of that stuff. And decided, man, this looks like the hardest, most elite organization that I can try to get into. And it looks like they do secret commando stuff all over the world. And so, but the problem was they're part of the Navy, right? Which I wasn't overtly thrilled about that, because ultimately it's the Navy. So I joined the Navy. Yeah. So the only reason I joined the Navy was to go in the SEAL teams. I joined as a corpsman because my recruiter didn't tell me you could actually get a contract to be guaranteed to have a shot at going to BUD/S. So I joined as a corpsman because I was like, hey, well, that's, being a realist, and most guys don't make it through training. I'm like, if I don't make it through training, I still don't want to be on a ship. And corpsman, for guys that aren't familiar, is Navy and Marine Corps speak for medic. The Marine Corps does not have their own medics. They get medics, or they get corpsmen from the Navy. And so my thought was, well, if I don't make it through BUD/S, I'll still be a corpsman, and I can work to be attached to a Marine Corps unit. So yeah, that was the only reason I joined the Navy, was specifically to go into the SEAL teams, because I wanted to go do commando stuff.
So after your corpsman school, did you immediately go to BUD/S, or how did that work?
Yeah. So while I was in corpsman A school, there was a dive motivator that was at corpsman A school. My corpsman A school was in San Diego.
What year would this been, Bill?
94.
94. Okay.
Yeah. So I graduated high school in May and was in the Navy the next day. So,
Nice.
uh, yeah. So I did the dive motivator wanted us doing the bud screening test every time they did it. So every 2 weeks, I think I was putting on my boondockers and dungarees, and because you used to have to do it in those steel-toed, horrible leather Navy footwear. And yeah, so and by God's grace, got a slot to go to Bud. So yeah, as soon as I graduated Corpsman A school, I think I went home to Colorado. We were living in Colorado at the time, and went home for a few days, and then checked into Bud's. Walked across the quarterdeck on Thanksgiving Day
Nice.
of '94, and they're like, "What are you doing here?" They signed my orders, and they said, "We'll see you on Monday." Yeah.
Now, did you make it all the way through the first time? Did you get any rollbacks or anything like that?
Oh no, I had a hard time. So I did good through Hell Week. And then post Hell Week, man, I could not run to save my life. And
Really?
still not really sure why. Like I never failed a run pre Hell Week. Never even got gooned, which is like if you fall behind normally like the half to 2/3 back, you get gooned, right? Just beaten some more, more fun and games. So never even had that in the first, leading up to Hell Week. And then post Hell Week, I couldn't run a 11-minute mile to save my life.
Really?
And so, yeah, so I, finish out first phase, roll into second phase. And, the first phase guys had,
Bill, can I ask
like,
it? Was
hey,
it your wind, or was it your shin splints, or some sort of low extremity
no,
injury?
so it was my wind, but I don't
Yeah.
really know exactly why. We never figured it out. I've had doctors afterwards say, well, maybe you were anemic. I don't know. Maybe I don't know, it was just hard on my body and then had a hard time with it. But I could not, and it might've been mental. Like honestly, like, just looking back on it, like it was, I was a mile behind the pack on like one of our first runs. It was probably a 10 or an 11-minute pace.
And they give you like a
And
week on crutches after Hell Week, don't they?
well, so I didn't need to be on crutches, but like, yeah, you get light duty, you get to wear, that was like kind of the status, the post Hell Week status symbol was dive socks and Tevas, right? If you
Yeah.
remember the Teva
Oh, yeah,
sandals,
Tevas.
right? So, and then you got to wear your dive socks with it because you were cold, and but your feet were so swollen that they didn't fit properly in boots. So, yeah, so I still don't know why, but basically I rolled into dive phase and just had a really hard time with the runs, and passed pool comp, which is like, Hell Week and pool comp are the two big attrition tests. So passed pool comp, and then yeah, actually on I think it was day one of Draeger dives, ended up getting rolled because I'd failed multiple timed runs at that time. And that was so I got rolled twice. I got rolled coming out of class 199. And then I also got rolled in 200. The first time it was actually for failing the dive physics test, which is super embarrassing because I could actually do the physics part of the dive physics test. But what I couldn't do is the long division, because the last 2 years of high school, I was allowed to use a calculator for the long division. And so I had forgotten to do long division. So it was kind of funny. They put me in a remedial math course, me and like, it was almost a dozen guys. It was probably 9 guys, other guys that failed the test. And so I remember the lady starts off with, hey guys, this is how you add. It was super embarrassing. So I failed. I got rolled for dive physics once, and then for runs, but really the running was the my main issue. And then they rolled me the second time I got rolled. They put me all the way back into first phase. So I went from day one of Draeger dives to life-saving, right? Had to take off my brown t-shirt, put a white t-shirt on, which that's like, that's kind of a morale killer right there. But I was able to, the pace of the run was such that I was able to kind of build back up, and, ended up being a, kind of mid-pack runner by the end of it. And now it's been one of those things that I enjoy running. I've, up until a couple of years ago when I really started injuring or when the injury started catching up with my ankle. My long runs were anywhere from 8 to 12 miles on a weekly basis, and now I'm sitting here with a boot on my ankle post 3 weeks after surgery. So,
man. So, what class did you ultimately graduate with?
201.
201.
Yep.
And then you go in. I think you went to SEAL Team 3. Is that correct?
I did. So I went to. I had to go to the dive med tech course first because I was a corpsman, and then I went to Fort Benning for Army jump school, and then went out to Fort Sam Houston out in Texas for the 18 Delta course. So it was the last class out there. Did the short course. So that was
how long was that?
About 6 months.
Okay.
Basically, we didn't do the whole goat lab thing, and yeah, I was very happy that I didn't have to go to Fort Bragg for that. And then checked into SEAL Team 3, I believe the summer of 96.
Okay. And now, how long were you there?
Until early 2000. Yeah, I think I checked out right at the very beginning of 2000 and drove cross country with some buddies and checked into DAMNAC.
And then, so were you in, what do they call it, green team? Were you there during 9/11?
No, I was the year before.
Okay.
So I was already at the command. I was actually, we used to have to do quarterdeck watch still, even as a, a soldier. You still had to do quarterdeck watch. So I was actually filling in for another guy because we had mandatory swim training actually with my buddy swimmer dude was out there teaching us. And so I was sitting on the quarterdeck when the first plane struck.
Oh, wow. And what was that like at that command?
Yeah, I mean, right away we're all like, "Yeah, we're going to war." And interestingly enough, some of the leadership was like, no, we're not going to war, boys. Like, what, this will be over in a week.
Well,
pretty
they had
crazy.
that wrong, didn't they?
Yeah, they got that one wrong.
Oh my God. So what made you try out for DevGru? How did that come to pass?
So I didn't even know that that there was a kind of a different level of commando work. But then in my first platoon at Team 3, we had a guy, one of our officers was a prior E, and he had been at the command for a short period of time, but he was squared away dude, and so post training things, and just in hanging out, I started to get stories, and as soon as I was like, oh, there's another level, I was like, that's what I want to do. And of course, as a new guy in the teams, like, you can't even verbalize that outside of your peers. You can tell your shooting buddy, like, yeah, that's what I want to do. But if you verbalize that up the chain of command, they'll be like, they'll just look at you like, what, like, who are you? Yeah. Like, arrogant new guy, like, this is not like, and some of that is true. Like, hey, when you show up someplace, you should just focus on being the best that you can for that particular organization that you're a part of. And then some of that is also like, some of those older guys, they, for one reason or another, did not want to go. And so when they see you wanting to go, there's some, maybe a little bit of angst there. But yeah, as soon as I found out that there was another level to this
So
whole thing,
what does that involve?
I was like, that's what I want to do.
But what does that involve? And Travis Haley has, he has a real good spiel about how he ended up in force from a regular infantry battalion, and he had to take leave, him and his buddy, and they had to do it sneaky and secret and all this shit. And because the Marine Corps, they're, F you're not going anywhere. And even if I had a real good friend who, honor grad out of sniper school, went to jump school, went to ranger school. Then he went to just a regular infantry guy. They had an open slot for BRC, basic reconnaissance course out in Coronado, to pick up the 0321 reconnaissance Marine MOS. And it's like, well, hell, he just got back from ranger school. We passed that. Let's send his ass. So they sent him, and he was single. He didn't have a wife and kids. And so he goes and he comes back and he's like, okay, sniper qualified, jump qualified. I'm already a reconnaissance Marine by MOS. I'm a Ranger qualified. I guess I'll go be a reconnaissance Marine. And the Marine Corps said, no, you won't. Stay right there in that infantry unit. And it's just so stupid. So when you say things like that, Bill, like you don't tell anybody that you want to do this next level stuff. I think military guys, man, if you've tried for those units, you know that nobody's going to be like, oh, that's great. Congratulations, Bill. You want to take your career to the next level. We're so happy for you. No, not usually.
Yeah, I actually remember then shortly before I left, I think they were like kind of publicly like saying goodbyes at quarters in the morning, and the XO was like called out a couple because I was there was 4 or 5 of us going from team 3 at the same time, and the XO was like talking about some of these guys that had been around 5-6 years at team 3, and then he goes, and these guys they gave back, right? Because generally at the time guys would do generally 2 platoons, and then they would go into training cell from their respective teams. Or the whole organization is different now, but and then he goes, not like some of you that just do your platoons and leave, which was me, because I screened after my first deployment. I mean, we were going to the desert, and there was no wars to be fought at the time. It was it wasn't I didn't have the greatest time, at team 3 with my deployments there. They were just kind of, going overseas and training people that I knew these people are actually our enemies. Like they might, the government says that they're our allies right now, but culturally they are our enemies, and we shouldn't be training them. So I recognize that even back then.
Yeah. And it's a shame our governments can't recognize it. Yeah. Dr. Fuller is on, my good friend, retired FBI and a former Army officer. And he says, all the best people go to Ranger School, Rich, just saying.
I wanted to for a short period of time. I had one of my, I would say one of my mentors. So this guy, Josh Sherry, he had been a Ranger, at 3rd Bat. And then he was a driver for one of the generals, and then like took that job specifically because you get to pick where you go. And then he ended up going to Buds afterwards. So like he was a little bit behind me going through Buds, and we met, but like I think while he was in Buds, while I was waiting around to go to 18 Delta, and then we both ended up as new guys at team 3. And he was I have a special place in my heart for Rangers. Like he would always, it's funny, he would pull me aside and be like, after we would do some of the the pre-war immediate action drills that were, very choreographed, lots of firepower, but like 8 dudes up and running at the same time.
Right. Yeah.
Like
fire team rushes, man.
He would pull me aside afterwards. He'd be like, Bill, not really how we do this. Like if people are actually shooting at you, it's going to be IMT. I'm up, he sees me, I'm down.
That's right.
And I remember thinking, I'm like, man, I really respect this dude. He's one of my good friends. But like, here are all these SEALs telling me to do this other stuff. And it's funny because as soon as people actually started shooting, no one did the 8 dudes up and running at the same time, like jogging in formation. He was right. I'm up, he sees me, I'm down. IMT, small rushes, right? So
I think that's what people, there's a misunderstanding amongst the general public that these special units they got tactics that we're not going to share with the
secret
guys.
Ones.
Yeah, secret. You got to go to damn it to touch the magic. In reality, they're just incredibly good at doing the basics.
Mastery level.
Mastery level. Like if you have, I would imagine if you get a couple of guys from just a regular CAG squadron and have them do fire team rushes, and then you take a normal Marine infantry unit and watch them do fire team rushes, you're going to see a difference, especially when we're shooting at targets. It's like, oh shit, they're shooting with precision and doing the rushes beautifully. So yeah, there's something to be said for that. So was it did you submit a packet? What does that look like going to that unit?
So initially it was just a request sheet to screen for the organization. Then I had to do so I had to run that up the chain, get approval, and then go screen. I think it started with a PT test, and yeah, PT test, which was nothing crazy. And then whole like long psych tests, lots of, the old bubble, filling things in with a pencil, number 2 pencil.
Like a 400 question test.
Yeah, long. I don't know, long. Like you're going to go blind from all these tests, and then there was a board with a bunch of Master Chiefs and a couple O's, and I don't know. I guess what stuck out to me during that was the psych goes. He goes. Whatever my rank was at the time, Rapier, like you say that you're a Christian. The Bible says thou shalt not kill, but you're going to, you want to be a part of an organization where that might be asked of you. And you go, well, there's a difference between killing and murder, right? It's very clearly defined in the Bible, right? David was a man after God's own heart, and he killed so many people that they wrote songs about him, right? Saul has slain his thousands and David his tens of thousands, and yet he was a man after God's own heart, right? Not reprimanded for killing his tens of thousands, right? He kills one dude, Uriah, and takes his wife, hugely reprimanded for that, because that was murder and adultery right there.
That's right.
Right. So I said, if David can do that, I don't think God is going to have a problem with me doing that. Yeah. And it was funny because the psych did not like the answer, and all the team guys are there like, yeah.
Right. You're absolutely right. I love it. I couldn't agree with you more.
So then once I did all that stuff, then I found out that I screened positive. They also asked me to change my rate, right? So they didn't want me to be a corpsman, because at the time corpsmen were detailed differently. So I signed some sort of a blank form, and a few months later, my officer in charge was like, "Oh yeah, by the way, you're a radioman now." I'm like, okay, great. And then a few months after that, he's like, "Oh yeah, you're not a radioman anymore. There is no more radioman. They're all ITs now." I'm like, okay. Yeah, that had like zero bearing on my actual what I did.
Do you still carry a Unit 1 in the teams, even though you're not technically the corpsman anymore? I mean, how does that work?
No, so no, I didn't. In fact, my second platoon, even as a corpsman, we had so many corpsmen, right? Because the teams went through a period where they didn't have enough corpsmen. So then, like, there was a time period when like half of a buds class would be corpsmen, because they were trying to make up for it. So
are a lot of them coming from the Fleet Marine Force, or no?
Mostly newer guys.
Okay.
Yeah, mostly guys right out of corpsman A school, and a lot of the guys were dive fair guys. So guys that had guaranteed slots at buds, they were sending them all to corpsman A school first, just because the teams were lacking in corpsmen. But then by the time my second platoon rolled around, like, we had so many corpsmen in there that I got to be a machine gunner, which that fit my temperament a little bit better anyway. So I didn't like the whole like holding hands and not holding hands, but bedside manner, and, oh, your knee hurts, here's some Motrin, oh, you have the snivels, here's some that. Like, I didn't like doing that. I like the trauma aspect of medicine. But I like to run the machine gun a lot better.
Yeah. I don't think my personality would be fit for that either. So Green Team, what was that like? Whatever you can share with us, I'd be interested in hearing about that.
It was good. I mean, it was hard. Like, it was physically very challenging. We ran a lot, did a lot of hard PT, and shot a lot. I think it's interesting how, different guys and different personality types have problems with different things. A lot of guys think Green Team was the like super hard thing. And it was a super hard, stressful thing, but like, I failed sniper school my first time through for stalking, ended up going back and doing it, completing it successfely. But I got 0 safety violations in Green Team, which is like, most guys got safety violations in Green Team. And so it was just, but then there was guys that like had breezed through sniper school and failed out of Green Team. Yeah. Right. So it's just like, some of it is just, personality types, strengths and weaknesses. So it just, they're grading you on your ability to learn, I mean, like, can you, like, are you in shape? Can you run hard? Can you shoot hard? And can you learn CQB? fast enough. So those are really the things, and jumping as well, right? You got to be able to exit on heading with all your gear, right? A lot of guys failed out for not being able to jump properly. So yeah, it was challenging, but it was a fun, hard, challenging.
Let me ask you this, because one of the things I've never asked one of the guys from the JSOC units is, so the way the Army does it with their special mission unit, you go to selection and then you go to OTC and you actually learn your craft, and it's not really a big stress fest, and they graduate a pretty higher percentage. Whereas, as I understand it, on the NSW special mission unit, you guys are more like, you let you in and then we attrit you through green team. Am I misunderstanding that?
Yeah, ours is hard the whole time.
Yeah,
I mean, and not to, I say that with a straight face. Like, I realize there'll be some Army guys that are like,
I think you're right.
Both organizations are phenomenal organizations. I have friends in both. Both have done, both have great, patriots, so, solid Americans in them. Obviously, I'm biased. I think our, the models are different, and there's strengths and weaknesses to both, right? Ours, we say, hey, you have to be a commando already, right? You have to be a commando within the SEAL teams in order to even try out for this organization. That gives a known factor, right? There's also, I mean, a part of what I didn't talk about for the is just peer reviews, right? Peer reviews are huge, right? Like, you don't even make it in the door, like through the door initially, if you don't have good peer reviews, right? If the guys that were a year or 2 or 3 years ahead of you, that knew you from your previous command, if because your name gets circulated, if they look at you and they're like, no, this guy was a dirtbag, he was lazy, like he was out of shape, he couldn't shoot, like, I don't want this guy in my team. Like, when that happens, then you don't even make it in. Right. So there's a huge strength in that. You don't just, the community is small enough where you don't get to just hide, right? Your reputation is going to precede you. So there's a great strength with that. You already are a 4 or 5 year commando before you do this. And then we say, hey, yeah, this is going to be hard for the whole period of it. And yeah, we somewhere 40 to 50% of already like established like operators with good reputations, we're going to fail you out of this, right? So obviously I think that's the better way of doing it. Now, the weakness that comes with that is you have a bunch of guys that think the same, right? Which can also be a strength, right? You have guys that every one of the guys comes from, an unconventional way of doing things, but the same, right? You're all kind of birthed, so to speak, within buds, right? So you have the same kind of unconventional approach to all of this. On the flip side, right? The Army guys, they say, hey, we'll take people from across all the services. We're going to do something really hard initially, and then it's a little bit more of a gentleman's course. Now that I know some guys have said it's, like that, but still, it's a hard thing. It's a stressful thing the whole time. Now the strength of that is that you get guys from all different walks of life. So you are going to get more of that special forces model of like, hey, we're getting people that have this paradigm of life and this paradigm of life, right? Which can be a strength. It can also be a weakness, right? Diversity is not always a strength, right? Unit cohesion is an important thing. And then the big thing that I would say is if you take someone that, let's say he was a Navy diver, he goes or whatever. So any non-combat arms profession, and now he goes through, a hard, 1 month thing. And then he does, a bunch of shooting and commando training for 6 or 9 months. And they say, congratulations, you're now the world's best commando. And I think it takes longer than that to do that. So, and again, like most of the guys, and again, like I know, both of our units have issues, right? There's strengths and weaknesses to both sides. And what I just described is not the norm, right? The norm is dudes coming from Ranger Battalion or from Special Forces, right? That go onto that side, right? So they are previously already commando or shock infantry, or however you want to put it, right? And then they go there. So it's not the norm, and both organizations good, but obviously I'm biased.
And rightly so. So you obviously graduate green team and you check into your first squadron, whatever you guys call it. And what's that like now that you've made it to the NFL, so to speak?
Pretty amazing. Yeah, yeah, pretty amazing. And that's, what we said here in the NFL, we looked at it like that. The remember what movie was some movie from years ago where the football players first string defense, right? The guy smashes the window out with his head. Remember I'm blanking on the name of that movie, but like that we would say that sometimes first string defense, right? A seat at the table, right? Like, hey, we're at the show. We would say that. It's really how we looked at it. And yeah, it was pretty amazing. Yeah, I mean, just like things from training, right? Things that had been forbidden before for, higher risk things in training. I remember on day one, I'm not going to talk about what exactly it was, but I remember on day one, they're like, this is what, once I was in the squad, they're like, this is how we do things, right? Like they don't do this, like everyone else, they don't do this. This is what we do. And on day one, literally the very first run, like I did this, it wasn't a huge, looking back, it wasn't a huge thing, but it was something that like we had been forbidden all throughout training. And now they're like, no, and it is the correct thing to do, but it was a training thing. Why not to do it? And they're like, no, you're at the show. Like, this is how we roll. And literally on the very first run, like things are set up and I end up doing what they had just said, you're now authorized to do. And I'm like, yeah, this is awesome. I mean, it's just, it was super cool, right? I mean, getting to work with the guys of, the highest caliber, guys that are very, very driven, very, very competitive and, guys that work at a very high level. It was pretty awesome.
I think to me, I think selection is in anything, if you got to separate the A, B, and C players, and a B player gets to hang around and wants to be an A player, and a C player that is trainable, then we can get him there. Then he can stay. But everybody else, man, your ass is on notice. And if you haven't had the fortune of being on a very high functioning A-class team, I wish you had, because once you're on that in an organization like that, man, it's life changing just to be around a caliber of people that like, I can't believe that I'm here. I have imposter syndrome. These guys, man, are world class, and I had that once, and it was unbelievable. What was your first deployment like?
First deployment at Team 3.
NSW. I mean,
it was an OEF deployment. It was honestly like, so I, fortunately got to do a bunch of them. In retrospect, it was not a great deployment. We only did a couple, like actually full size hits. Did a bunch of driving around. Did a bunch of cool stuff, but it wasn't like we kind of had missed, like the guys that went in initially did a bunch of cool stuff, and then there's some stuff shortly after that was pretty cool, and then we kind of hit a lull on our first OEF deployment, but that did set us up. We got to be on a part of the initial invasion into Iraq, which was absolutely awesome. That was a super cool experience. That was really cool. And then honestly, things started picking up post Iraq, and I remember being bummed that we weren't going back. Like the Army side was going back to Iraq, and like they were starting to get into more shootouts, and then but things picked up for us in Afghanistan, and I think it ended up being better for us on the OEF side than it was on the OIF side. Just the guys in Afghanistan wanted to fight more. So that's I remember we actually got pulled off of, we did a split deployment where we were in OIF for part of it, and then I remember being so upset. They're like, no, like they just gotten a helo shot down with guys zero. I think it was a zero loss of life one, but it was like things were getting really sporty on the OEF side, and they're like, "Hey, we need to plus up guys over there," and our troop got the call to go over there and do that, and I was super upset that that it was me, and we ended up blasting dudes. The first, we got into country and went on an op a day or two later and blasted a couple dudes on that first hit and back in country. And yeah, things just kind of picked up from there. So it was a good, that ended up being a good deployment. And then we just kept going back there, and it was good. We got to work.
So did you see the transition from, and again, I'm just getting this third hand and from reading books and stuff, but I understand there was a transition from being able to hit a target and then transitioning to doing call outs. Did you see that transition?
Yeah. But I mean, it did. Like there was a sweet spot in between when we could do a call out if we wanted to, or not, there's absolutely a time and a place to do a call out, and there's a time and a place to not do it. And most of the time we had the latitude to flex one way or the other if you could justify it. And you had to like really be able to look a lot of people in the eyes and say, "Hey, for these reasons, we need to not do a call out this time." And generally the leadership was good. Sometimes, I mean, it's with anything, politics get involved, and, it's part of warfare. Civilians get killed sometimes. And, and then the generals would feel pressure, cause they're getting pressure from the politicians, and that would trickle its way down. I would say overall the Taliban had a great, information operations campaign. I mean, the number of times we got shut down because, either a civilian was accidentally killed, which is, I mean, it's always regrettable, but it is part of warfare. And some of the things that people don't think about is that, if we go in and a civilian is accidentally killed, right, that's regrettable. However, if we wouldn't have gone in there, like the generals don't bat an eye at dropping a bomb on things,
Right.
and then you just kill everyone, right? The bombs are completely indiscriminate. So we're still a much more scalpel like object, even when in the fog of wars. I mean, unfortunately, bad things happen sometimes. So Taliban had a pretty good IO campaign, and
I've had one of my very best friends, Justin Carroll. He was on the very first MARSOC deployment where they got vilified and thrown out of Afghanistan.
Yeah.
And
I remember that,
because exactly what you said. And who you taking you're not taking the words of the Marine leadership that was actually in the vehicle-borne IED attack and them fighting their way out of it. You're just listening to the Taliban telling you this got a bunch of civilians killed, and where are the bodies at? Well, we've already taken care of that. It's just, it's absolutely unbelievable.
Yeah, it definitely, some of that stuff, definitely low points for me on deployments. Like we got to a point where, supposedly for our own protection, we were having to do shooter statements and like talk with JAGs. Like anytime we shot any bad guys on target.
Wow.
And I just remember thinking, total slap in the face. Like really, we're in a war, and we're doing lawyer stuff after a good shoot. Like this is ridiculous.
And you're going on record. Are they reading your Article 31 rights acknowledgement statement and all that shit? Or
I don't remember if they were doing that or not. I don't think we got read rights, and I don't know. The line was that, we're doing this for, so that in the future, when Afghanistan is a successful, member of the, community of nations, that they don't like try and like prosecute you afterwards. It's like, really? Okay.
It's never
but yeah, that was definitely demoralizing when things like that were happening. You got some CID guy or NCIS guy, like questioning, and I get it. Like there is, like, you are accountable for your actions. but at the same time, it's like, hey, this is, these are good, clean shoots, and we're doing investigations like they're not every single time. Like that's we wouldn't have won World War II if we had to do that.
As you were talking, man, of course, my time in combat, there was none of that. And I just, it's mind blowing to me, because I was, as you were talking, man, I was like Operation Market Garden. Okay, take a tactical pause. Everybody come in, like, where's the rest of your unit? The 80% of us are dead on the Omaha beach, man. What do you want? I need to write statements about why you shot that German over there. Like, what? I mean, it's insane. And we're never going to win if that's where the future of warfare is. It's not going to happen. But like you said, the dichotomy is that they have no problem dropping a JDAM on somebody and killing everybody in there, and that's fine. That's collateral damage. Somebody gets hurt on target and they didn't need to be hurt or what have you. Now we're going to smoke the E7 that pulled the trigger. Doesn't make sense to me, man.
Yeah,
they never will.
It's warfare, and it's people say war is hell, and for many different reasons, right? It's honestly like kind of looking back, it is, war should be very, very rare, right? We should not go into it lightly, but when we do, it should be overwhelming and incredibly violent, and break the enemy's will to fight, so that we don't have to be in these forever wars, right? Where we just keep, 20 years in, we're still fighting. I mean, and another, just while we're talking about bad morale things and forever wars, it's not recognized. Another huge problem is not recognizing the actual threat, right? Extremist Islam is the threat.
Yeah,
right. That is the problem, and that was a huge morale thing for me when during the Obama timeframe, when it was changed from, we used to go after Islamic extremist organizations, right? That would everything fell underneath that. And then sometime during the Obama year, or like early on in the Obama years, it changed to VEOs, violent extremist organizations. And I just remember thinking, man, if we can't even name what we're fighting, like, how on earth are we going to win?
Yeah.
Right. Because we weren't fighting communist extremists. We weren't fighting Buddhist extremists.
Thank you.
Right. Or Jehovah's Witness extremists. Right.
No.
We weren't fighting any of those people. We're fighting Islamic extremists. Right. And so, yeah, that's to me, that's a problem. Right. During World War II, we said, hey, we're fighting the Nazis. We're fighting fascism. We're fighting the Japanese, Imperial Japan. Yeah. And we during the Cold War, the communists said, we're going to take over the world. We took them at face value, and we said, we're going to stop you from doing that. Yeah. Right. And then in the Obama years, we have, all of the Islamic extremist organizations, right? They're all working for a caliphate, right? Have been doing that for the last 1,300 years, right?
Yeah.
And we have the president of the United States going on and saying that ISIS is un-Islamic. Yeah. And it's like, man, that's a problem right there.
I obviously totally agree with you more. The only time that anybody's ever tried to shoot me in combat where they were Muslims, and I think that goes for all my friends. We weren't out there fighting Amish people, brother. And no. So I think that's a thing. It's like, it's not xenophobia. It's, look, man, I don't have a problem with your race or ethnicity, but some cultures are incompatible. And that culture, the Islamic culture, is incompatible with the West. And if we don't wake up to it and call it what it is, we're not going to be here. We're not going to leave a world for our grandchildren. And now that I am a grandfather, I look at things differently now. And I'm intolerant of that kind of stuff. If you can't call it out, then you sure as hell can't fight it. Now, back to the JAG thing. Having been a cop and you use force on an American citizen, yeah, you're going to be writing a lot of reams of paper. I don't give a shit if you put them in a restraint, an armbar, or you use deadly defensive force. You're going to be writing reams of paper, and you're going to go to court, and you're going to get all that shit. But for our military service members that are abroad doing their thing, as long as they're active within the ROE, I don't understand that, man. And we got to get our head out of our ass about that. How do you feel about Pete Hegseth and changing it from the Department of Defense to Department of War, and the kind of where he's going with everything, Bill?
Awesome.
I do too.
I mean, yeah, I think changing to secretary or changing back to Secretary of War is great. One of my mentors, Tom Kyer, he was like, even better would be if we just called him the War Chief. So I would nominate that as being even better than the Secretary of War, but I'll take Secretary of War. Yeah, I listened to some of the stuff that he was saying to when he got all the admirals in there and generals together to talk to him, and I'm like, where do I sign? Like, like part of me is like, yeah, I want to go back in.
Absolutely.
And then super cool to see. I'm blanking, or no, Dakota Meyer, I believe.
Yeah.
Right. So
He did
Marine
go back in.
Corps, right? Yeah, did go back in. I'm like, how awesome is that? The guy has like what 12-ish years of broken service,
Yeah.
and then he goes back in. Like, I mean, just super cool. I think we're back moving in the right direction, focusing on actual warfighting skills versus, I mean, just the mountains of emails on, sexual harassment prevention and cultural awareness
Climate
training,
change.
and just absolutely ridiculous. I mean, like, if we don't square this away, we're going to lose as a nation. Like
Yes.
that, like the military is not a social experiment, right? The military is not about diversity. Diversity is not our strength, right?
Nope.
We want unit cohesion. We want the strongest guys that want to go and fight.
Yep.
Right. And it should be the politicians that are saying, no, like, we don't want to fight because we recognize what the cost is going to be.
Yeah.
But the individual at a shooter level, the guy should be going, yes, put me in, coach. Where are we going? Why aren't we in the fight yet?
Yeah.
Right. That's what we need from our military.
I agree with you, man. You were talking about World War II. I mean, shit, we bombed Dresden and one night killed tens of thousands of people under the auspices of firebombed them, set their houses on fire, burned their children alive in their beds. Why? Because their parents probably work at an ammunition factory down the road. And now we can't even, I'll stop there. But we got to clearly define who the enemy is and what is the end state that we're going for. And if we can't understand the end state, and that's part of the problem, man, I think with the forever wars from the GWAT onward, man, it's like, what does the end state look like? And if you're so delusional to tell me that, oh no, we're setting up a modern Western democracy in Afghanistan's tribal region, you're a freaking idiot.
Yeah.
You don't need to have your job at the State Department. You're a clown, and I don't know how we right the ship. So I see Hegseth. And there was a lot of pushback from senior Army officers. None of the Marine officers that I know of, everybody was like, hell yeah, when Hegseth's speech with the admirals. Like, couldn't he have done this with an email or a VTC? Why does he have to fly everybody in? I'm like, you can't have that conversation, that level of a sea change without bringing everybody in. You're going to see my face and feel the passion in this room. And if you don't like it, down the hallway, there's some Appendix J's, fill one out and turn it in and get your ass out of here. Go golfing somewhere. But this is the focus. It's lethality, and our enemies should tremble in their beds at night. Right down about 25 miles away from me is this guy, Joe Chamblin, and he was the sniper team leader of the guys that pissed on all those dead guys that they killed.
I remember that.
Right?
Yeah.
And I'd been reticent to interview him because I remember when that happened, I was still on active duty, and I'm like, come on, man. I don't have a problem with you pissing on him. I'm maybe to be completely candid here amongst friends. But what I do have a problem with is filming it. That was kind of juvenile. So he was being interviewed, and they're like, somebody asked him, so was this the right thing to do? As a Marine, is this the right thing to do? Because it depends on what you think a Marine is. If your idea of a Marine is spit polished guys and marching and doing all this, standing in front of embassies, then probably not. If your idea of a Marine is somebody that makes our enemies tremble, then yeah, it was the right thing to do. And I'd do it again. And I'm like, okay, I need to have you on the show. And we did, and to his point, I don't know if you've ever heard his position on it. It's like, this was an IED cell that had been killing Marines, and then they took their bodies and dismembered them and hung them from this tree, their body parts from a tree. So then like, okay, Sergeant Chamblin, take your team and take them out. All right, no problem. So they wait and they hide, and they finally get the guys, and they kill 4 or 5 of them. And he said, normally the straight leg infantry kind of goes in and gets the bodies, and we're done with it. He goes, but this time they're like, no, you go get the bodies. And he was pissed off, like, these killed my friends. And we're going, yeah, the least we can do is piss on them. We're not going to hang them in a tree. So I think now that's an outlier kind of thing. I'm not saying that should be happening every single time, but what I am saying is that's the kind of people that need to take the war to our nation's enemies. And if you're not ready to put a bayonet in somebody's chest, then the whole Emma has two moms video the Army did, the commercial Emma too. Did you see that?
I saw part of it. Yeah.
Oh my God.
Contrasted with the one that the Chinese are doing right now.
Yeah. Or
with
the Russians.
Like all the yoked out dudes, and the same thing with the Russians. And yeah.
Yeah. So I think we're seeing that come back, man. There was a really good one the Marine Corps put out recently where some shooters go into a room, they do their thing, flashbangs are going off, and at the end he's bringing his muzzle down on this guy laying on the ground, and then it showed it, Bella Wood with a Marine infantryman stabbing a German soldier. And I'm like, there we go. I'm ready to sign up again, Sarge. Where do I sign up?
Yeah.
So how many deployments did you end up doing with
right around 10?
10? All Afghanistan and Iraq, or?
Yep.
Yeah.
And a few other places too.
A few other places. Okay. And when did you retire?
14.
And as soon as you retired, what did you get into, Bill?
We started Amtac Shooting the day after I retired. And, the mission statement was, teaching good Americans to be able to protect themselves and their families better. Really had no clue, where we would fall out as far as like, would I be training mostly mil or civilian or what? And we've definitely fallen into a spot that I'm super happy with, which is my average student is a normal guy that is serious about protecting himself and his family. And I love it when former teammates are like, hey, who are these guys that sign up for classes? Like, who pays money to, out of their own pocket to go and train? And I'll tell them, I'm like, hey, they're normal guys, but they're they're pretty serious about this. And they're like, really? Can they shoot? I'm like, you know what? The guys that are my better students with pistols will crush a bunch of former teammates.
Yeah.
Because they're serious, because that's their thing. They're into it and they train a lot. And usually not so much with carbines, because especially kind of the time after I would say my time frame, my era was kind of the last of the guys that placed a large emphasis on pistol shooting. And then as the GWAT kicked off, it was like, we just weren't using pistols. And the guys started recognizing that and going, well, hey, let's actually train with what we're fighting. So we've grown Amtac Shooting. We're doing courses all over the country now. And then we do anywhere from 5 to 10 local courses as well. Probably what I'm most known for is the integrated combatives piece, right? So just that, and it's also what I think is most important. What most guys should start with is that, right? Everything from awareness, 100% safety with tools, and then hey, let's know how to pull our pistols out, right? Like one-handed pistol draws. I'm huge on that. I know it's counter to what a lot of guys in industry are putting out. But when you think that, right, if you think that the engagement is going to start with you being outside outside stand-up grappling range, and you're like, oh, there's a threat, assume the position, right? Now I'm in my leaf position, and now on the buzzer, I'm going to do my fast two-handed draw stroke and go. If that's how you think it's going to go down, then that makes sense. That's the logical way to train. If you think that the gunfight might start with a fist fight, it might start with you pumping gas and not paying attention, and then all of a sudden you're getting punched in the face and pushed into the gas pump or into your car, then maybe you should know how to fight and pull your pistol out with one hand.
Yeah.
Because you could be stopping the other guy from stabbing you to death, offlining his pistol, smashing him in the throat, pushing in his eyes, right? You could be doing any of those things, just cross-body checking him in order to create more space while I'm pulling my pistol out. And so if that's something that you practice all the time, then hey, you can, right? That's what you're used to doing, right? So a huge proponent of one-handed draw strokes, whether it's pistol or blade. And so we go through fundamentals of pistol work, and then we'll go through fundamentals with blade stuff. All the blade stuff that I teach either comes from SIAC Collie or Atienza Collie, right? I'm huge on where we've got to give credit where credit is due. Those guys are my teachers there. Right. We've got to, but it's not hard to learn how to do that. You know, how do we draw a blade? Where do we put the blade, and what do we do with the blade post penetration? Right. And then it's another huge part of integrated combatives is better weapon, better position. I'm always fighting for those two things. Right. Best weapon at the time might be smashing the guy with my elbow. Right. That was the best weapon that I had. It was the fastest way for me to project force onto target. Right. But then now you're moving backwards. Now the next best weapon might be just me. I'm going to crossbody check you and drive you backwards while I'm pulling my pistol out. Right. So just understanding how to do that. So that's a huge part of what we teach. We do also teach, carbine work, right? Fighting with carbines. We do a fun class that we just started doing maybe 2 years ago. I'm trying to incorporate more actual force on force stuff, right? Yeah. Because so many guys, right? Everyone's doing, okay, get on the line and work your strike ready, work your low ready, work your shooting and moving, work your barricade stuff. That's all great. But actually putting it all together is pretty cool too. So we're doing a fighting in and around vehicles carbine edition. I think I'm going to start doing a pistol one as well here soon. But basically, spend the first morning just doing pistol or doing carbine fundamentals. And then we do an afternoon of just doing shooting from vehicles and live fire bailout drills. And then day two, so guys have to bring airsoft rifles. Day two is all fighting out of cars with airsoft stuff. And it's just a good, it ends up being small unit tactics starting from a car. But ends up being just a cool, hey, this is, it's great that you can do it on on a flat range, but can you sprint 20 yards and do it? Right. Can you recognize when someone else is actually getting pinned down and then go flank the guy? So we try to do stuff outside of kind of what the norms are. We do, about once a year, I'll do a night vision class as well. And a cool thing on that I have changed over the years is, we used to do anytime we did night vision work, anytime we did force on force stuff, good guys had night vision and bad guys didn't. And so when I first started teaching, when civilians would come or military guys or law enforcement guys would come, that's how we did it. And then I started thinking about, I'm like, well, when we do combatives, I don't train to fight an untrained opponent. Right. I train to fight a trained opponent because to try fight an untrained opponent is super easy. So that was some GWAT, carryover with my mentality. That's not the reality anymore. I mean, the proliferation of night vision and thermals is just everywhere. And so we should train with that. So now when we do if I do a night vision class, and we do force on force with that, we've been using the Blackbeard Mantis lasers for that, which is great because that way you're not just safety thing, nods and full PPE is challenging. And also dudes don't want to get their nod shot with, their $13,000 dual tubes shot with BBs and cracked lenses and all that stuff. So the lasers have been great. Right. And I mean, every training you do will has some sort of a drawback. But the lasers are a great thing for that. So now when guys show up for a night vision class, I say, hey, when we're doing force on force, you're going to use the equipment that you brought. Right. And if you have more better stuff, right. If you have thermal and night vision, guess what? You're going to win more frequently. Yeah. And yeah, that's harder for the other team. But you know what? That's the reality these days. If you're going to, right. And that's a fraction. That's one class that I do per year is that, right. It's kind of the few students that are yes, I meet the boxes, I've checked the pistol combatives and the fitness boxes. And I also want to do this other stuff. I mean, that's honestly, that's one of the reasons why I was so hesitant about teaching anything small unit tactics or CQB when I first got out. It's not that I don't think that good Americans should know how to do this. I want every good American to be able to do this stuff. Right. It was because there's so many, especially where I live, there's so many guys that come at it from the prepper mentality and they're like, oh, I want to do CQB. And I'm like, dude, you can't run across the parking lot and you don't even normally carry a pistol. You have zero business learning to do CQB or small unit tactics or even do carbine work. Get in shape, carry a pistol, learn how to fight. After you can do that, right? And now I'm like, oh yeah, this is a good dude. Like he trains, right? He's morally upright. Like after we have those boxes checked, then I'm like, okay, yeah, now we can start doing that. And so it's only been much more recently that I'm like, well, I have enough good solid students, which is why like I'll put a blurb any like CQB or night vision class or anything like that. I'm like, hey, you have to be a former student or come recommended to me by someone else. Like you have to know someone that I know that will vouch for you in order to come to one of these other classes, because I don't, we've been super blessed. Like I've never kicked anyone out of a class. Like I've had one close call, but he was an old timer that was just in over his head. And like, he's just a lot of factors working against this guy. And he was just somewhat incompetent with some of his stuff. But I like part of that is I put on all of our training things. Hey, you need a baseline of physical proficiency in order to participate in this training. And for whatever reason, that little line, just like so many of the, where you're saying the LARPers, the people that are just pretending, right? They see that little statement about like, hey, you need to actually be in shape in order to do this training. And then they self-deselect.
That's
which
right.
is good, because I don't want the people that, and I guess some people like put LARPing. I still think of the LARPing in a negative context. I'm for people. Like if you can do the pistol combative stuff and you want to learn, as a good American that is already capable, if you want to learn how to throw armor on and fight, I'm all for it.
Absolutely.
I want you to be able to do that. I just want to make sure that we don't put the cart before the horse. Yes. I don't want you to like have all this cool stuff that's sitting at home, and then like you get into a random violent situation that is absolutely winnable with the right conditioning and training, and you end up losing.
Yeah. No, I 100% agree with you. And like I used to think, like for warrior camp, day one, morning one, we're going to put you through an initial strength test, minimum 3 pull-ups, 40 crunches. And then we're going to do a 1.5 mile run. You got to do it under 15 minutes or something. And ultimately Mike was kind of talking me off the ledge, because I'm like, look, they're signing up 6 months ahead, right? Whatever. You got 6 months to get ready. It's coming, but ultimately we're like, nah, we want people to learn. But I think those kind of gates are there for a reason. And I like the fact that you do that. And one of the things that when somebody joins the American Warrior Society and they get inside our training vault online, the first thing we'll always tell them to do is like, take the self-assessment. And it's going to, I want you to go to the range. I want you to shoot a 5x5 skills test, and then based on your grade, you plug the scores in, and it's going to say, you have an A, B, C, D, E, F. And then you're going to take the Marine Corps PFT for your age bracket and your gender. And then it's going to give you an assigned score. And then you're going to answer some questions about, this other stuff. And at the end, you get that way you know what training module to go in. The training module might be your tactical medicine. The training module might be edge weapons. The training module might be our white belt to blue belt curriculum, So it gives the guy or gal who doesn't know what they don't know, do your self-assessment, because if not, a lot of guys are going to do, I like to bench press, meaning I like to go to the flat range and shoot, an IDPA target at 7 yards, and I feel good about myself. It's like, well, it's really more to it than that. So you take the self-assessment, it's going to give you scores. And if you got C's and D's on these certain things, then that module is going to be the right module for you. Put the pistol down for a minute, just focus on dry fire and work on your fitness.
Yeah, 100%.
Before I let you go, Bill, there's a question that came in here from Mike. It says, Bill, can you talk about the impact of Frank the Northman, may he rest in peace, had on you personally and your blade development?
Yeah, so Frank, I met Frank Wendell, aka the Northman, through Kyle DeFore. Kyle had asked myself and the STG guys to help do this cool course that he was teaching out in Richmond, and it was or outside of Richmond somewhere. It was shortly after I'd retired, and met Frank, got to train with Frank that week. And towards the end of that week, Frank approached me. He was like, "Hey, I used to host a bunch of guys. Like, I don't want to host a bunch of guys anymore." He goes, "I want to host you and Kyle." And that's it. And so I was like, "Cool. Well, we'll chat." Like he was a serious dude. I could tell that. And, so ended up going out, and then, it was September in Maine, and I'd go out there and teach for like almost a week straight. I'd do an LE class, and then I'd, do an open enrollment class, and sometimes 2 open enrollment classes, and just had a great, Frank was all about training, right? And all about pressurizing training. And he was a good grappler. I mean, he was hilarious. He was, he's like, "I'm a white belt." And of course he was a high level wrestler, done Sambo. Like, he would tell me about like having gone in and like very quickly getting uninvited from local jiu-jitsu schools because he would go in and he'd tap out black belts. Because he's, and technically he wasn't, he's a white belt in jiu-jitsu, but he was a
Grappling
30 plus year grappler, and catch wrestler as well. Like, just, I mean, the guy was just a good friend. So he had gone to a knife making class with Tom Kyer from SIOC and came back, and he was kind of like almost in that empty nester phase of life where he just had some extra time, and he started going crazy with making knives. And so and we used to talk quite a bit, even though he was on the opposite coast of me. We would talk, fairly frequently. And one day we were talking about, "Hey man, wouldn't it be cool?" Because we were all carrying fixed blades as our other strong side blade. But we're saying, "Man, wouldn't it be cool to have a fixed blade in our pocket?" Because we're all carrying folders, which we jokingly refer to as halfway broken blades. Mm-hmm. And it's not that there aren't good folders out there. It's, what does your folder draw stroke look like while being pushed backwards and punched in the face?
Yeah.
Right. And so we're like, yeah, wouldn't it be cool to have a fixed blade that you could carry in your pocket? I kind of described to him like what I thought right would look like. And then I didn't think about it again until maybe 3 weeks later. I get a package from Frank with the prototype of what we now call the Northman, the first prototype. And so that back and forth continued for the next year plus. And, just constantly refining. We went through a bunch of different iterations with clips and, and different pocket sheaths and, blade geometry and thicknesses and punyo shapes and all that, a bunch of different stuff. And then we finally got to a point where I was like, "Man, Frank, this is super cool." I'm like, "I would like to make this into a business." And he was a successful business guy doing other stuff. At the time, he was like, "Yeah, I like, go for it. Like, that's all you." And so then I asked other guys that I respect in industry, and they're like, "Yeah, you should do it." And then we launched Amtac Blades, and really, it has gone, we're 7 years now, I think, of, I think this was our 7th year now. I think we started in 2018, really started as an ideas company, right, with other folks making stuff for us. And now we have 4 full-time employees and making everything right, 20, 30 yards that way. Nice. in our shop. So it's been a cool thing to like actually go from, from an ideas company to actually manufacturing. And, obviously there's some growing pains associated with that. I can't make quite as much stuff as I'd like to be able to right now, but it's been a cool thing. Like it's honestly, it's a big motivator for me. Being able to have employees, right? Being able to have guys that, we don't live in a great spot we live in an amazing spot. I would say the best spot in the country to live, but there's not a lot of great jobs. So being able to provide jobs for guys with a good work environment, good Christian environment, like my guys get, if they're full-time guys, they get 2 hours of paid shooting every month, where they, we've got a range on site here, and they just shoot me a text, "Hey Bill, I'm going to go down and shoot now." I'm like, "Cool, go do it." So just, it's great, like having that culture. The guys are believers that work there. they're all into training at one level or another. It's it's funny. Some of the guys will take, because they're grinding all day and getting dirty. So some of the guys take their pistols off when they grind. And then there was a thing for a little while where one of the newer guys like forgot his pistol, like more than one day. Like there's a spot where they keep their pistols, and guys started putting notes of shame into the trigger guard. And so it's just a cool like culture of like, hey man, like little ribings like that are good to like, I mean, like I joke when I miss a shot, or like if I do, like I don't want to bring shame on myself, my family, and the nation, like, like, and it's good to think about things, in those ways sometimes. So that's been a fun thing. Frank is missed. We still, anytime we come out with a new blade, Leanna, his wife gets, I still send her blade serial number 1. That was always what I did every time we would launch something new. I'd send Frank serial number 1.
Nice.
So yeah, he's missed.
Yeah, well, thank you for that. And we're leaving a lot of meat on the table today, man. I've had you here an hour and 40 minutes. I want to respect your time, and I know that they want to get you off that ankle there. But I do want to get to a couple of questions here. Mike says, thanks, Bill. Appreciate the history. In the background, Frank was a stud, and he is missed. Unfortunately, I found him about a year before he passed. This gentleman is on out there on YouTube land. He says, good morning from PA. Bill, huge fan. Cecil Birch says, one of the reasons I compete so much in jiu-jitsu competitions was that I knew I had to hit a specific marker at some point. I had to hit my correct weight. My S&C had to be on point, and my jiu-jitsu game had to be tight. If we don't have tests on occasion, we can get lazy and pretend to be ready. And I'm going to tell you, if you haven't taken one of Cecil Birch's integrated combatives classes, you need to.
Yeah, he's a good dude.
I'm alumnus and love
one thing to add, just to kind of, power assist with what he just said right there, right? Doing things where you're laying it on the line is important. Whether it's a jiu-jitsu match or a race. I did the Sniper Adventure Challenge race a couple years in a row. Like, sign up for that stuff, do that stuff, and then tell other people that you're going to do it, so that you're self-shamed. If you're like, if your buddy's like, oh, hey, how did that race go that you were talking so much about? And you're like, well, I twisted my ankle, so I couldn't do, okay. Or I got really busy. Oh, okay. Right. So it's important to lay it on the line. Like, one of the ways that I get to do this on a fairly frequent basis is just with stress courses. Probably half the classes that I teach will have some sort of a stress course. If I'm teaching on our range at the Amtac Training Center here in North Idaho, we have a run and gun, and so we'll do that. And I don't know. Since I've been doing this, I've probably lost 8 or 9 times. Mm-hmm. I hate it. Yeah. Right. I hate it. I'll never show it. Right. That's one of the big things that we talk about. You shouldn't show emotion, right? You shouldn't be disappointed. You shouldn't pitch a fit or anything like that. We call that leakage, right? That's shameful when you do that, right? Because really you're just peacocking, being like, when the guys are like miss, and they start cursing like a sailor because they're missing, all they're doing is telling everyone else, like, I'm normally not this bad. Today's different, right? So I hate it when I lose, but what I think would be way worse than me losing would be to live in a glass house and to go, I'm I don't want to take away any of the glory of the students, so like I'm just going to sit this one out and watch you guys, no, do it, whether I'm hurt or not, or having a bad day or not, go out there, compete, lay it on the line, right? And realize, this is, every single day we have to get incrementally better. Right. And, otherwise what are we doing? I mean, right. So Pamanatu and Chris Syak, the guy that started the Syak system, he coined this phrase, and it's kind of gone mainstream now with kill your clone. Right. And the idea is that at midnight you're cloned. But so for the next 24 hours, you get to train. And then right before midnight, before you get cloned again, you have to fight your clone to the death. Who's going to win? Did you kill your clone? Like, what did you do today? Did you anything you did that day, your clone didn't do, right? You're fighting your clone from yesterday, right? So like, did you get your dry fire reps in? Did you get your fitness in? Did you get smarter? What did you learn? Right? Yeah. Did you get a hard roll in? Right? Like all these things. Right. And so when we say, hey, did you kill your clone today? Right. That's what that means is like, hey, what did you do today to make yourself more capable? Mm-hmm. And it's super important. Right. And part of that, like becoming more capable, is lay it on the line. Like it's okay to lose sometimes. It's actually beneficial to lose sometimes, as long as you hate it in training.
And you learn from it, right? You
learn, exactly. As long as you learn. And I mean, like, I'll tell guys this.
Down, what was it?
I'll tell guys this with a dead man's gun. Like, does it, right? So you pull your pistol out, you're supposed to do a drill, you draw, bang, or you draw, gun goes click. You thought it was going to go bang, right? And you tap rack and no round goes flying out, right? So what I tell guys, first off, is it going to affect your life if you have a dead man's gun in training today? And the answer is no, right? It should not affect your job. It should not affect your, unless you're teaching for a living, then it will affect your job, right? If you're a student on the line, it's not going to affect your income. It should not affect your relationship with your wife. You're still going to eat lunch. You're still going to eat dinner, right? So it doesn't actually affect you. However, if you have that dead man's gun and you're like, whatever, no big deal. It's just in training. It's just a dead man's gun. Then guess what? You'll have one again tomorrow and the next time you go to the range. And then if the moment comes to make that partial headshot where your insert weakest loved one that you want to protect is there, right? And they're going to die if you don't shoot the bad guy that is holding them, right? And you come up and you get the dot right on him, right? You're staring at the guy's right eyeball. You're squeezing the trigger and click, and you're like, wow, that was a really good dry fire. And then your kid dies. Now you're going to feel shame and regret for the rest of your life, right? So go ahead and let it burn you when you fail on the range, right? Let it burn you for a while. You should feel bad. When that happens to you on the range, you should feel bad and be like, no, I'm not, like, and then let that feeling of like, man, I failed on that. Like, and I hate failing. Let that feeling of failure lead you to the point where, you know what, I'm not going to do that again. We call it circle of awareness within our system, that like I do a loading procedure in my workspace every single time, right? And I do it the same way every single time, so that and if I'm diligent about doing that, I will not have a dead man's gun, right? And so like, let these failures in training shape you, right? So that you are less likely to fail for real.
I love that. And on that, I don't want people to mishear what you're saying. I agree with you 1000%. I was shooting in a USPSA match maybe last year, and one of the guys on our squad is a former NFL player. He's actually a Pro Bowler, absolute stud, and also a high-level judo guy, mountain of a guy. I won't say his name. And he has a bad stage. Okay, it happens, right? And he carries that just into stage 2, and he flubs that up again. And I'm like, hey man, come here. It's, I'm sure you had a bad down at some point in your illustrious football career, right? That was that down. Now you learn from it and you move on. But if you're going to carry this out for the rest of this freaking match, you might as well go home, because you got to be able to take that headspace, learn from it, and then reattack aggressively without letting it carry through the rest of the day. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, 100%. I do want to clarify. Like, I mean that as it relates to, like, if you have a dead man's gun, right, you should feel bad about it. 100%. If you miss, right, if you miss, you have to be. One of my instructors told me this years ago, like, a good shooter is like a good quarterback. Sometimes it's forgetful, because if you're thinking about that last, interception that you just threw, it's going to mess with your head. Right. Yep. And so in the moment, all we're thinking about is, or what I'm thinking about is, I'm staring at what I want to shoot. Yeah. The dot is on top of it, and I'm squeezing the trigger properly.
Yes.
Right. And I'm doing Eagle of Freedom. Right. So I'm trying to squeeze the ground with my toes. And and I'll shoot. I'll try and go faster and faster and faster. And then when I start missing, I'll rein it in. Right. And that mental reset should take half a second, right? I see sometimes guys' mental resets are like they come off their gun, straight finger, and they take a breath or two. I'm like, that is not a mental reset. Like a mental reset should be a half a second. You drop your weight, and I'm thinking, squeeze and eagle of freedom. That's it, right? Yeah. Superimpose the dot, stare at what you want to hit, do eagle of freedom, and pay attention to your trigger squeeze.
Yeah, we have a saying
that should happen in a half a second.
We say first thing is get your hits. If you get your hits, go faster. You go faster and faster and faster until you hit your failure point. Now you're hitting the C zone or whatever, and it's like, okay, let's dial it in, figure out what you did wrong. I didn't say go slower. Figure out what you did wrong, and let's re-attack this. But I want to get to Tony's point before I let you go, because I want to be very clear. As Tony says, I've taught a lot of folks that have physical impairments and can't sprint across a parking lot, but deserve to be able to defend themselves. Yeah, and of course, Tony, I think you know me and you know Bill enough to know that's not what we're talking about. If you have a physical impairment, of course, I want you to be able to defend yourself. Let's be clear about that. What I'm saying is, if you're an able-bodied American man or woman for that matter, and you know that your cardio isn't where it needs to be, and you know your physicality isn't where it needs to be, you know your diet sucks, and you got all these things, and that's why you can't sprint across the parking lot, then shame on you. Get your shit together.
Last thing I want to agree with everything. Can I add two things to that? Right. Yeah. So for able-bodied Americans, 100% of what Rich just said. As we get older, or we have physical limitations, i.e. you're in a wheelchair, or you're just, right, if you're weaker, you should get stronger. But like, as we get older, we are going to get weaker, right? And so we need to think about, like, how do I win in this? And how do you recognize that, hey, when I'm 75 years old, I'm not going to be boxing someone or grappling someone at the same level that I am now, or at the same level that I was 20 years ago. Right? These things are different. And so you need to set yourself up for success, right? You need, which honestly is going to be a willingness probably to use tools even sooner, right? I mean, think about female cops are able to shoot people way quicker than a man, right? Because when that 6 foot something felon grabs that female, like, he's going to kill her just with his hands,
right? Versus
the 6'2", former running back, like, that is now a police officer. Like, the jury's gonna look and be like, why did you shoot this guy? Like, wait a minute, like, you train MMA, you're like, why didn't you just punch? Right. So as we get older, we need to set ourselves up for success, which means we should have potentially more tools on us. Right. And we need to be smarter, right? The whole, left-hand gun, maybe, being able to deploy a lethal tool with either hand, right? All these things matter. Right. And then also not lying to ourselves. I've got a student, a faithful student, solid guy. He's in a wheelchair. And I remember in a class a couple of years ago, he's throwing elbows from his wheelchair. And I just said, hold on, man. Like, I was watching him for a while, and I was like, stop. We're pretending right now. In order to throw hard elbows, you have to be rooted to the ground. You can't be rooted. Like, what we're going to do is we're going to do everything weapons-based. Because, right, so we're going to do, like, he's going to be able to draw a blade with either hand, right? He's going to be able to pull he's already carrying a staccato, right? So he's a serious dude in a wheelchair, right? I'm like, hey, you need to get you need to get a snubby for your left pocket as well, because you're not, like, he's not going to fight anyone. He's not going to grapple anyone. So what he needs is, from all of his normal positions where he hangs out, he needs to be able to produce tools, because that is what is going to get him the win. Right. That is going to give him the best chance at winning.
No, 100%. Jim says, I'm glad you are addressing the 70+ crowd. Dr. Gordon Botson, you missed a lot of good stuff. Dr. Botson, you might want to go back. Will Parker says, law, self-defense, proportionality. Yeah, it's a thing, guys. It'll keep you out of prison. And that's another thing, that like at our last warrior camp, I'm like, look, guys, I'm never going to do a warrior camp where we don't discuss the law of self-defense, because just like you got ROEs Oconus, we have a very set ROEs here. It's the 5 elements of law of self-defense. If you don't understand that, you're just training yourself to go to prison, because you're talking about using tools and you don't understand the contextual use of those tools, then you're setting yourself up for some serious liability down the road. I want to finish on your faith in Christ. As a believer myself, how does that shape what you do with Amtac Shooting?
I mean, it shapes everything. I mean, so first, I guess my statement of faith, right? I'm a follower of Jesus, right? I've repented and placed my faith in Christ for my salvation. That is not a say some words and then go live the rest of your life the way you did before, right? That repentance is a continuous thing. We all fall short of the glory of God, right? We all, even as believers, we are going to continue to sin at times, but the process of sanctification is following more and more closely after Jesus. It affects everything I do because it is my primary identity. Right. And to my great shame, it has not always been my primary identity. Right. And what I mean by that is there's, we all have different identities. Right. For me, it's follower of Jesus is number one. Then it would be husband. Then it would be father. Then it would probably be elder at our church. And then, I don't know, somewhere in there, trainer of men, business owner, like, a skier, like all these things are, down the line from that. And so really my worldview is shaped by my faith in Jesus, right? Like I don't want to, if I thought, right, when we talk about like the difference between killing versus murder, if I thought that all killing was wrong, I would repent of my past work, and I would repent of the job that I'm doing right now. And I wouldn't do that anymore. Mm-hmm. But I think it's actually, we are supposed to be capable, right? We should be able to protect ourselves and our families. I mean, the Bible talks about if you don't provide for your family, you're worse than an infidel.
Yes.
Right. And so part of that providing, right? So shelter, water, fire, food, and also the means to keep it, right? You can't just let, right? I mean, I don't understand the complete pacifistic mentality. Like, when people are like, oh, I'm opposed to using violence. I'm like really? Like someone's beating your child to death or your wife to death in front of you, you're going to ask them to stop. Like you're going to raise your voice, right? You're not going to actually use violence. I don't think, my understanding of the Bible, that's not what it's talking about. We have 2,000 years of Christian tradition and interpretation and many more thousands of years before that. And, Old Testament times, of righteous application of violence. So yeah, I mean, 100%, like it is the most important thing. For the guys that are believers, I would encourage you, be serious about your faith, right? What I do, Rich, what your company does, right? Like surviving a violent confrontation, that's great, right? That's the win for, for the next 40 or 50 years. I mean, that's if I live a really, really long time, but the actual, right. So people talk about dying well. Truly dying well is having peace with God. Mm-hmm. And the only way we have peace with God is through the finished work of the cross, right? Through repentance and faith in Jesus. And so I would just encourage guys that are believers, right? Be serious about your faith. Follow Jesus 100%, right? If you're more excited about listening to a podcast on training than you are about listening to a sermon, like pray about that. Mm-hmm. Right. If you are diligent about doing your dry fire routine every morning, but you won't sit down and read your Bible for 10 minutes and pray with your wife in the morning before you leave for work, man, there's some priorities that need to get fixed right there, guys. Yeah. So that's for the believers. For the guys that aren't believers, I would just encourage you, again, like this is not, right. So many guys think that dying well is, neo-pagan, right? Go to Valhalla. I mean, it's such a common thing that guys say. And it's like, man, that's assuming that there is no truth, or that truth is whatever you make it up to be. The reality is that like no one that is serious says that Jesus didn't exist. Mm-hmm. Right. There's a lot of people that deny that he was Lord, but no one that is serious says that he doesn't exist. So we're left with Jesus was either a crazy man, right, that actually believed that he was the Son of God, but wasn't, mm-hmm. right? That's one option. Or he was absolutely a crazy man, right? He truly believed that he was the Son of God, right? But was not, mm-hmm. right? Or we take it for what he said, that he mm-hmm. is God incarnate, right? Part of the Trinity, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, right? That he came, born of the Virgin Mary, fully God, fully man, tempted in every way that we are tempted, but did not sin. And then at the end of his life, right? So people think about, oh yeah, he was, whipped with a cat of nine tails and had a crown of thorns and had to carry the cross. And yes, those things are horrible. But the truly terrifying thing is God the Father poured out his righteous wrath, the wrath that you and I deserve, right? He poured out that wrath on his son, right? So that if we repent and have faith in Jesus, that we can have peace with God, right? That God looks at us not like the sinners that we are, but he looks at us with the imputed righteousness of Christ covering us. And that's just, it's so amazing, guys. So I would encourage the guys that are not believers, repent, turn to Jesus. It is the most important, right? If you take nothing else from this conversation, please take that, because that is, that is the long-term win right there.
I 100% agree with you. And I tell you, when Mike and I started this back in 2014, the initial idea that Mike had was American Christian Warrior Society. And then we ultimately decided, not as a business decision, but just we want people to be safe of all faiths, right? So I was like, okay, well, we'll kind of take that off. But I think when they murdered Charlie Kirk, when he was assassinated, we went, the gloves are off. I will not have a podcast where I don't say that Jesus Christ is my Lord and Savior and look straight in the camera and do it. And then when we do training now, we start with a prayer, and I think that's incredibly important. Even our USPSA and IDPA matches here, they start with a Pledge of Allegiance and a prayer, and then we break into squads and head off to do our thing. But for believers, man, I think the time we live in, if you can't look around and go, there's evil at work, especially in our great nation, I don't know what to tell you. And it's important more so than ever, probably in my lifetime. But anyway, Bill, that those of us of faith train and break bread together and pray together, more so now than ever, in my opinion.
Amen.
Bill, it's been 2 hours, my friend. Time flies when you're having fun. And I'll say this, I've interviewed hundreds and hundreds of people over the last 11 years. I think this is by far and away one of my favorite interviews. Thank you for being on today, sir.
Well, thank you for having me on. This was a good conversation.
I've never said that before to a guest, especially on a show. But yeah, I think it was great. And if you're down for it, let's do round 2 sooner rather than later.
Would love to. Yep.
Well, God bless you, my friend. And where can people find you, follow you, Bill, train with you?
Amtac Shooting is our in-person training. We have Amtac Blades is our knife company, and we have Amtac Training as well.
All right, Bill. Guys and gals out there in Warrior Nation, remember, the tagline, the fight is coming. You ready?